So I think we can start.
Okay, let's start.
So I will quickly go through the 5 topics we will talk about, okay?
Okay.
So the first topic I want to talk about is how the life looks like in America, because I grew up in China.
Right.
So our grow up environment can be very different.
Mm-hmm.
The second topic is that, I know you love coding. And I also know not every computer science student
Yeah.
love coding,
Oh yeah.
including myself.
Even me for a while.
Yeah, so I'm really curious about how you
Mhm.
gradually find coding is fascinating.
Yeah.
Because I also know some friends really enjoying coding.
Yeah.
Yeah, but many people may just do because to find a good job.
Oh yeah, totally.
So the third one is that it's a topic I think a lot in recent years. Is your understanding about love.
Mm.
When we say love, not necessarily we are talking about romantic love, right?
Right.
Like family love for family members, for
Mhm.
friends, or even for the world itself, right?
Yeah.
And the next one is about AI, because because it's everywhere.
Yeah. It's hard not to talk about.
It's hard not to talk about it. And the last topic is that I have 20 small questions.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like a scenario.
Yeah.
And you can say, okay, I want to choose option A or choose option B.
I'm excited for that one.
Yeah.
I have no idea what this is gonna be.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like you like a dog or cat, but it's a
Okay.
little bit more complex.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So it's good.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so the first topic is about the life in America. So let's start from childhood.
Okay.
So how does it looks like to grow up in America? For example, there are some interesting things that I observe.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that, for example, in let's say in a park or in a public space, the kid may fall down or climb on the ground to do all those stuff, random things.
Yeah.
I felt that most American parents won't stop him or her.
From doing what?
For example, climb on the ground.
Oh yeah, okay, like get dirty.
Yeah, get dirty. Yeah. For example, one of the things I have very feelings if I'm a kid and I get myself dirty. My parents always dirty, don't touch it. Or if I climb on the ground, or roll on the ground, all those stupid things. So this is just a small observation, but I think the mindset is very different.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up around here in this area. I mean, this area, Seattle area, but I wouldn't say I grew up in a city at all. Not quite like super rural, but maybe and not quite suburbia, but maybe somewhere in between. And that was just like, when I think back to my childhood, like those younger years, pretty much all my memories are just being let loose outside and like, yeah, climbing into trees and climbing into bushes.
Well, parents think, oh no, don't do that. It's dangerous. You will fall down, whatever.
Well, yeah, they kind of just let us do whatever we want. I mean, I don't think, especially when I was a kid, they didn't really worry too much about that. Which, I mean, I don't know, maybe that's strange for you, but I think for a lot of people,
that's very different culture.
Yeah, like situation. You could just kind of like walk up and down the street, get into all kinds of trouble, and it was more so if something happened, then they'd be like, why'd you do that? Like, you shouldn't be doing all that. But
yeah,
what they don't know doesn't hurt them.
Yeah, so I do you think that why there are some difference? Why American parents give more kind of like freedom or to kids?
I mean, I can understand why you'd want to be like more protective.
Yeah. Because I think that Chinese parents, or at least based on my experience, parents may say, hey, you are a kid, you don't know what is correct, what is wrong to do. So parents will provide some guidance to tell you what to do.
Yeah, and also I think that there's a difference. I don't know like what environment you were in, but I think it's a lot different in a more rural area versus city area, because really, like, what is the worst that could happen to me as a kid is maybe I like fall down or get hurt, or if there's not even really a place where I could like go out into the road and get hit by a car. Like, you know, the worst thing that could really happen to me is if I just like fall.
For example, your parents may worry about you play with water, like go to a lake or something like that, right?
Yeah, that would have been a no-go probably.
Oh,
but that wasn't really like, if I was going to the lake, there was
far away from
if
the
there
house.
was a realistic way I could die, there was probably an adult there, like you know, like sometimes we're on the coast, like we'd go to the beach or something. Yeah, there's no way if I was like 6 years old, I could have just gone out in the water alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in some ways too, it's like you have to hurt yourself or like do something wrong to learn. Because like if there's like a big tree and I want to climb it, and I'm always being watched by my parents and they say I can't ever do that, then in the back of my mind I'm like, well, what's the real problem? And eventually maybe one day I'll climb a 100-foot tree.
I get your point. When
I'm alone.
I get a point. So which means that the you know, the assumption behind that is that for example, if you are forbidden to do, let's say, a little thing, and get little trouble, at some point you may do something big and have a big trouble.
Yeah, it's like a common stereotype in America is the kids like in high school and stuff were very sheltered by their parents, live a very sheltered life. Once they go off to college and are on their own, those are the real crazy ones.
Yeah,
they put themselves into the most trouble because they're like, I'm finally free. I'm gonna do everything else.
I think that that can also happen in college in China as well. We can talk about the college later.
Yeah.
And another thing about childhood is that I wonder whether you or your friends around you, when you are a little kid, your parents will send you to learn a lot of different stuff. Let's say on weekend, you can learn painting, piano, some instrument, dancing, or even learn some subjects like math. You know, a language to fill in your calendar. Is that common based on your experience around your friends?
Yeah, I mean, some people like instruments and stuff. I would say like actual schooling outside of school, maybe, but I think that's usually reserved for if you're like, oh yeah, this kid needs some extra help.
Oh, okay.
But most people, I don't think, do extra like schooling outside of schoolwork. Most like extracurricular activities, almost everyone does is play sports and play a lot of sports. So like when I was growing up, almost every kid would play soccer and baseball and basketball.
And when you say play sports, you are talking about play with friends.
No,
like random
organized leagues.
It's like a training.
Like you get signed up and this is a baseball league just for kids. It's pretty cool.
I got you.
It's not necessarily even like training, like, oh, I want to train to be the best.
A professional.
It's just something
very popular.
It's just, yeah.
That's interesting because, for example, that like my parents or my friends' parents, I think that we always have some kind of expectation, even if when this kid is young, we have some expectations that he or she can get a good, you know, performance in school, and in future he or she can went to one of the top universities.
Yeah.
Right. So because of this belief, then some ambitious parents, or you can also say very responsible parents, began to intentionally guide their kids in such a direction. So you began to learn a lot of things from a very young age.
Okay.
Those things, most of the time, is regarded as useful because it may be able to get some scholarship from the college or whatever, right? Because for example, if you are really good at, let's say, math, and you get like an Olympic competition, you get a gold medal or win some place, then you may be admitted by a top university. So I think such mindset is pretty common. I'm not sure.
Was it like that for you? Like, did
for
you
me,
do extra school outside of like the normal school you went to?
You mean for me?
Yeah.
I'm a special case. My parents doesn't have too many plans for me, but
So
that's very common in my friends.
that's common for
That's common in my friends
to
have a plan.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For example, I find that one of the most upside thing is that after I went to college, the college I went to is pretty good back in China.
Yeah.
So a lot of friends are so talented.
Yeah.
Like guitar, they began to learn how to play guitar from 6, from 7.
Yeah.
Some people play really well on piano. Some people, I find that they began to prepare at a very young age.
Yeah. I think
at that time I'm just reading the anime.
It's funny because there are parents that do that in the US, but I almost feel like it's almost kind of looked upon negatively to do that.
You look negatively on that, or
me,
a lot of.
I think in general, not me personally.
You mean it's more like a general?
Yeah, like the general like viewpoint towards doing that. I feel like
why?
Because I think it can be seen as forcing your kid to try and do something they don't want to do. In America, the common way or the common way people think about like their kids growing up is you can grow up to do whatever you want to do.
So the point is that we are American parents worry about, say, if you don't get a good grade in school, you cannot go to. If you don't do good in elementary school, you cannot go to a good middle school. You cannot go to a high school. You cannot go to a good college. You cannot get a good job. You will ruin your life.
Yeah, and that's honestly like the thing about the American school system is that your grades in elementary school and middle school and kind of to a certain extent high school don't matter at all.
What matters?
That you go and you don't like get expelled. Really. Like you can literally you basically don't get grades in elementary school. Everyone passes. And in fact, there's like
for example, we are 100 points in school. So and after examination, I will know my ranking
in your school,
in my class.
Yeah, it's not. They don't in elementary school. They don't like to enforce a competitiveness like that. They want everyone to feel kind of like the same. And there is some things like even for me, I kind of did like there's like advanced classes, so you can be in like kind of like honors classes, which are like maybe just a little bit more advanced, but it's not like your grade. It really actually won't make a difference. Like for example, where you go to middle school or where you go to high school. Everyone you go to elementary school with, you will almost certainly go to school with them until you graduate high school. You're on the same track. It's based on where you live.
Okay.
Unless your parents want you to go to a special private school where it is more like competitive like that.
So the same. Actually, we have similar policy or similar situation in China is that, for example, if you live here, right? Then your kids may go to some school near here. And there are so-called good school and bad school.
Yeah.
And because if I'm a parent, if I'm a father, I want my kids go to one of the top school.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Then I will try to buy a house there.
That's the same thing here.
Right? Then it can make the price of the house ridiculously high.
Oh yeah.
Same here, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
In America, housing,
Yeah.
ridiculously high.
Especially near the good school, I guess.
Yeah.
Then the situation is the same.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Well, in America, there's actually this thing that was put in place in the 2000s called the No Child Left Behind Act. And it basically made it so you can't, like, if so there was like a thing, if you're performing poorly in school, you could be held back a grade or something. Like you didn't meet the requirement to move on. But then this act that was passed basically made that impossible.
Why is it impossible?
They just didn't want that happening anymore. I don't know the specifics of like, but I know as a teacher, you can't leave a child behind. Like if a child is very far behind in school, you kind of have to bring everyone to that same level so everyone can move on together.
I can see some people may blame on this policy.
Yeah.
Some people may say, hey, how about those kids who are capable to learn more?
Yeah, and then that's where like maybe the honor system thing comes in. Personally, I've kind of only heard stories about this. Like I didn't experience this at all going through school. Because I think I actually was in a pretty good school district. But I know in like not as good areas, I think it's a pretty big problem for like schools to be able to provide.
Yeah, I get a point.
Like promising students better education.
I get a point. Yeah. It's a very complex problem, right? Because each student, each kids have different situation. Some people want to learn more. Some people need more help.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, so now you graduate from elementary school, you graduate from middle school.
Yeah.
Now you go to high school.
Yeah.
How high school looks like? It's very pressure or
no?
No.
In public school, high school, it's like I would say the majority, because I've talked to you about your experience. Like it seems like
very intense.
Like you have to score high because that's what matters to get into a good university.
Right.
In America, I would say the majority of people don't take school that seriously.
Why?
Because
when you say don't take school seriously, do you mean that they don't go to a top university seriously?
Most people will not aspire to go to a top university. That's like maybe like the top 5 like valedictorians, they can go off, but you know, we have so many schools here that aren't that hard to get into.
Okay.
And honestly, the sentiment in America is that unless you are the top of the top and go to what's called an Ivy League school, which there's a handful of, every other school is basically the same. Your degree is worth the same. So it's more so like, sure, you want to pass and like you want to get to a certain level, but I'd say like most people are aiming to be like, they're not aiming for 100, they're aiming for 80. Like they'll show up, they'll do their homework, they'll try but it's not like every day they're like, I have to be the best. No. There's a few kids like that. Those are called like Dexters. A few nerds.
A few kids. You know, when I was in high school, I really want to, go to one of the top university back in China.
Yeah.
Kind of like Stanford or Harvard in America.
Yeah.
And I can feel that desire is very strong, and I feel that my classmates also, well, not everyone, but I can feel some classmates also have such strong desire.
Would you say like the majority?
I say, I mean, so the first point is that the majority want to go to a good university. And maybe I think at least 10% want to go to the top 3, top 5 university. I think that 10% is reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, imagine 10% of American kids want to go to the Stanford, Harvard. You can feel it can be very competitive.
Yeah, I would say that I would say not quite that many people in American high school, like in the public school, are realistically like really trying to get into Harvard.
And also an interesting thing is that I don't know now, but in a long time in the past, at least when I went to school, the best school are public school in China.
The best schools are public schools.
Yeah.
Wow, that is not the case at all here.
Yeah, it's very, yes, I understand the situation is very different here.
Yeah, that's kind of cool though.
So especially the university, the top universities are all public school.
Okay.
And for high school, nowadays, because nowadays I believe they have more and more, private school can show up in China. But it can be ridiculously expensive for really good ones. And sometimes they also need to interview the parents.
The parents?
Interview the parents.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, private school. But for public school, it's
for a private, okay.
Private school, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think that's actually can happen here too.
Yeah.
Especially if it's for elementary school.
Yeah, and for public school, the top public school, their criteria is simple. The grades you get in the examination. The grade. So for example.
Wait, even for like high school?
Yeah, even high school, even college.
Well, it makes sense for college, but I'm surprised for high school.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything like that in America where you have to test into a high school.
But how you distinguish if you want to go to the top high school?
You just get lucky. It's just based on where you live.
Then if it's based on where you live, then it's not about lucky, it's about rich.
It's about rich, yeah. But I think what it is the areas where the rich people live attracts better teachers, and it attracts more funding for the school districts. Yeah. So I feel like the people who are rich don't go to here because there's a good school. A good school exists here because everyone here is super rich.
No, yeah. So while I was in school, I really hate the education system in China. But after I grow older and older, I really think that it's a education system give more opportunity to poor kids.
Yeah.
Because as long as you can get great marks in the examination, it doesn't matter where you live with your parents. So you can see it's very different, right? And because you want to and get high marks in a standard examination, then of course you need to sacrifice a lot of things. I guess that that's a very different situation, because after you graduate, then you realize a lot of things in this world cannot it's not depend on how hardworking you are.
Yeah.
Right, you work 20 hours a day. It doesn't make sense, right? If you have property, it can bring much more money than you are hardworking worker. Okay, cool. So after high school, now you went to college.
Yes.
How the college looks like? And just now you mentioned that, right? Because suddenly kids get freedom.
Yeah. So I went to a school called Western Washington University, which is in Bellingham. I'd say Western is like, it's not like a top university at all. It's a average university. So for me, like for my first 2 years there, this was like basically through high school and the first 2 years of college, I really did not care at all about school.
What do you care?
I just cared about like hanging out with my friends and having fun.
You live in the dormitory or you still live at home?
So I moved to Bellingham. I lived in the dorm.
Okay.
And then eventually at this, I don't know if there's something similar to this in China, but in the US, a lot of schools have like these things called fraternities and sororities, you know?
What's that?
Basically, it's like, I guess you could think of it like a club of students. So fraternity is just for boys.
Oh, I know that. That's something I observe every time, especially on weekend when I went to the Seattle campus.
Yeah.
You know, there are some houses near the campus, and I can see that.
Yeah.
All boys or all girls.
Yeah.
And a party, something like that. Not music.
Yes. They're like
we don't
big
have,
parties.
We don't have that thing in China.
You don't have anything.
No, we don't have such, you know.
Do people party in college in China? Like throw big parties and stuff?
No. Chinese students' party are very different as American students' party.
How do they party?
For example, I never join, how to say that, prom. So you dress and you're dancing. How do you say that?
What is it?
Prom.
Like a prom?
Prom.
Okay. That's more for like a high school thing in America. Like a dance.
It's like, even no matter high school or college, I never done that back in China. And for example, our party that I don't, so firstly, we want most of the time, I mean the party I join. I cannot talk about the party I don't know, right? So I think that it's more like that, you know, and we won't play loud music.
Okay.
And we make most activities is more like play board games.
Okay.
Those very quiet, I feel, activities.
Do you drink alcohol?
Not too much.
College students don't drink much alcohol?
Especially the better the university is, the fewer I notice that people drink and smoke. While I was in middle school, I noticed that some boys will smoke in cigarettes.
Yeah.
Because the teachers won't allow them, so they will do that in restroom.
Yeah.
Same?
There's similar, yeah.
Same
like vaping.
Yeah.
Vaping in high school.
Yeah, whatever.
And
after I went to college, it's very, very rare. I noticed that, you know, people smoke cigarettes. And even for alcohol, at least the friends around me, I don't think I observe the alcohol. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and
but what about going like out to bars and stuff?
That's also a very interesting thing. Is that I don't go to bars.
Yeah.
I went to bar with friends several times, but I think that there are some common sense. Is that or some, you can see it as some, you know, prejudice. If you like going bar, it's some, you know, people have some kind of assumption on you.
Yeah. You're like kind of a degenerate. Maybe.
Whatever, right? Whatever, right? If you're a boy, you like go to bar. People think about, okay, what's your purpose?
Okay, so people are like kind of judgmental about it.
I think such judgment exists. Maybe nowadays it gets better, but I assume, or I feel that such situation happens. And also some things like how do you say that, taboo?
Tattoo? Yeah.
I noticed that that's very common in here.
Yeah.
Again, very few friends around me have tattoo.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, because, and again, if I guess we also have such a prejudice. If we see some people have the tattoo, we also have some assumption.
What assumption?
A lot of assumption, and it can be some negative assumption.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also like we will talk about a romantic relationship later. But also that I think that a lot of parents don't support or teachers don't support kids to have a girlfriend or boyfriend in a pretty young age. When I say a pretty young age, I mean before you go to college. But
even in high school.
Even in high school. Right? Teachers will say, hey, if you have time, you gotta
be studying.
You should exactly. My class in high school is a so-called top class.
Yeah.
Our teacher is very, very strict. If a boy and a girl work together, he will be asking, what are you doing here? Just work together and don't do something strange.
Do you think, how much of that do you think is because you were in like the top schooling environment?
That's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons. But the basic idea is that when the environment is very competitive, sometimes people have some expectation on you. You should give up a lot of unnecessary things to give way to starting. And also just now you like alcohol, like a bar, like smoking, and having lots of boyfriend or girlfriends. I didn't mean at the same time. I mean one by one.
Right.
It's not regarded as I feel it's kind of like against traditional Chinese philosophy.
Oh, I see. Interesting.
Yeah. So I think that's. So I think that when So I think that when as international students, when we came here, I noticed that there can be two situations. One situation maybe it's more like my case. I don't feel very get used to. For example, if like American friends want to, let's say, go to a bar or have alcohol, I don't get used to that very well. But another kind of situation maybe because when we're back in home, we are so limited, and suddenly here doesn't have a lot of limitation, so it will go to a very extreme way. So I think that can be two situations.
Have you seen that before? Like people kind of going overboard, international students?
I heard of a lot of these stories.
Okay.
But in the friends I play a lot, actually doesn't have. I guess that sometimes if you are too different, it's hard to.
Yeah, it's probably keep more friends in the.
It's hard. It's not. I deliberately to do something. It's just when you have interest too different. It's a little bit hard.
Yeah.
A lot of friends I have is actually, live a pretty Chinese style life, even if they are in America as well.
So when you say like against Chinese philosophy, what do you mean by that?
For example, I think that like drinking alcohol, like be more flexible on romantic relationship. Like
they're just traditional values.
Yeah, I think it's more like traditional values.
Yeah.
Again, I think that maybe the situation now gets better.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially for young generations. But I think that maybe I received those value and kind of get used to that value. So I feel that it's those things is not really. For what I think now, I think it's totally fine. It's your personal choice.
Right.
If you like it, you do it. And if some bad thing happens, it's on you.
Yeah.
That's how I see that. But because I grew up in such a value system, I feel hesitant to do that by myself. For example, we two examples. The first example is that I interview one friend. He's not a Chinese.
Okay.
We talk about two things. Those two things I have never tried. The first thing is using dating app.
Okay.
That's kind of something that not align with my value system too much.
Okay.
Another thing is that he shared his experience. He went to the strip club.
Really?
Yeah.
You guys are talking about that?
We talk about that. You
Okay.
can find it on YouTube.
Okay.
So firstly, we don't have such thing in China legally.
It's illegal, yeah.
It's illegal.
Okay.
Maybe it's at some place they have some things, I don't know, but at least it's
But it's
impossible.
like behind closed doors.
It's impossible. Then you drive on the way and you saw a very big.
Yeah, a big advertisement. Like
Yeah, so it's very different. So for example, from the perspective I have now, okay, it's legal. Both these two things are legal. Then if I want to do that, well, it's your own choice. Right? So I understand it now, or at least I can understand it that. But if myself do that, I feel if I did that, I feel kind of like a guilty.
Yeah.
Because the long term,
it just feels like it goes against your values, your conscious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can say
I can understand that.
So you can say it's very different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also in college, I think that in Chinese more like still emphasize study.
It's what?
Emphasize study.
Oh, emphasizing study.
Yeah. Because after you graduate, you want to either go to
it's job first and then relationship.
Yeah.
In China.
Yeah. I feel so. That's why I want to talk about the topic about love. I felt that that's a lesson I didn't learn a lot when I grew up. Yeah. My parents won't talk too much about that with me when I grew up. Talk about how to to get along with
like a partner or just love in general.
Both.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, can I ask why you're against using dating apps?
So firstly, it's more. I'm not against dating app. It's more like. It's more like. It's more like. It give. I don't know how such prejudice came, but the prejudice I may have at a certain time is that people use dating app don't have a good purpose.
I think I understand what you're saying. Like people aren't using the apps to try and find a serious relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's a good. But also, my friends, he told me that when you use a dating app, you have options. You can choose. I'm seeking for short term, I'm for long term, or even lifetime.
Yeah,
you can choose.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of funny because I feel like dating apps actually kind of started becoming a thing for people our age, at least in America.
Yeah, I think that's
so. Like, I've seen the evolution of it, kind of, and it's interesting. Like, there's like now there's a pool of different dating apps, and people kind of know. Okay, if you're on this one, you're looking for this.
Do you have some recommendation?
Well, I don't know. I've been out of the dating game for a while.
Yeah, because you have relationship.
Yes, but I've heard. Hinge. Have you heard of Hinge?
I've heard of that.
That's the one if you're looking for a serious relationship.
Actually, my friend, he also mentioned Hinge.
That's what I've heard. I've also heard that it's just kind of not the best. Like, it's just hard.
Hard for what?
To find a relationship using a dating app.
I can say that. So several reasons I can say is that you see so many people on the dating app.
Yeah.
It's like if you go to Costco, there's so many things. Actually, at the very beginning, you say, okay, I just want to buy milk. Yeah. Then, okay, which milk I should buy? This is the first thing. And the second thing I can say is that naturally speaking, one of one of the reasons why social media can bring people anxiety is that you see those top ones.
Right.
Because algorithm works in this way.
Yeah.
If this girl or this boy is loved by most people, well, you are a boy, you want to see boys, but the girls will see the top ones. Then you or me are so average.
Right.
Well, nothing. Similar, right? When the algorithm recommends you girls, you see the top ones. I assume.
I don't really know how it works.
Yeah, because I assume the algorithm should be similar like when you use other social media. I assume maybe like YouTube. It's more possible you will get recommendation for videos that have high views.
Yeah, but you also have to realize the main way it works is by proximity. So people who are closer will be higher. Priority.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that's bad about it, or one thing that's damaging about it, is that it opens you up to so much more rejection.
You mean it will ruin your confidence, huh?
In a way, I think that because everyone's on there for the same thing, everyone's trying to get a date, you're almost like incentivized to cast a wide net and try to ask out a lot of people.
Like job seeking, huh?
Dude, exactly. Yeah. It's exactly like that. And just like job seeking, you become numb because you're just rejected again and again and again. And I feel like it can almost kind of taint your reality or your perception of reality. Like you think that I'm so undesirable because all of these girls are rejecting me. But in reality, it's just so easy to be rejected. It's like it's not even probably as personal.
And also in reality, you don't start. It's not that you meet someone, you say, hey, I will have a dating. No, you become friends. And as time went by, right? So yeah, I think that it's
it's tough, I think.
Yeah. So well, anyway, since it works, then it might have reasons why it works. It may be just because there are so many people use it, right? If it doesn't work, people want to use it. It might have some reason behind that.
So I'm curious, what's your philosophy? Like, are you looking, or are you just kind of?
You mean for those people what?
For a girlfriend or a partner or something.
I think that if I cannot find someone I love and she love me as well, I'm okay to be single.
Okay. So is it something you're like actively looking for right now?
I think that's not something. Well, it's also another philosophy. It's not. I don't know whether it's wrong or right. I think love is not something we can actively looking for.
It finds you. Is that what you're saying?
Kind of.
Yeah.
And also another thing that if you don't even know what is love, even if true love finds you, you will turn it away.
You will what?
Well, it's more like you will turn your back to it, or basically because if we don't know, again, similar like a job opportunity. If you don't understand what you want, even if a good opportunity go to your door, you won't think it's a good opportunity. Let's say, okay.
Okay, sure.
40 years later, if you get an offer from Microsoft, or 20 years later, you get an offer from Amazon, Google, whatever. If you don't have the ability to distinguish what is valuable, even if you get it, you won't accept it.
So what you're saying is if that Microsoft 40 years ago, if that Microsoft job came to your door, you wouldn't accept it, even if just because you didn't know it would be a good investment?
I mean, that happens a lot actually in history, right? There are some future will be a good opportunity.
Yeah.
But at this moment, it's not obvious.
Right.
Right? And people just take it away. Or like a Bitcoin, for example. A lot of people just forgot.
Yeah.
Right? Because they don't think it's something valuable. I think similar for love. And as long as something become very obvious, then how do you think, again, you and me, such average person, that opportunity will come to us? It's similar like love, right? Imagine a very famous, I don't know who you have some, some famous like actor, actress, what you love. Imagine if that person reach out to you, say, hey, Park, I love you.
Yeah.
You will accept. Imagine if you don't have a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Right, similar for girls. If like, the most handsome man or most rich man too.
Yeah.
The thing is that it's very hard to have in real life.
Mm-hmm.
What is true love for average person, I think, is that you and she really match each other, and both of you, let's say, think about the world in a similar way. Both of you are average person. But because both of you average person, and if you don't have the ability to distinguish, you actually matching with each other so good, you will just ignore that or don't take that seriously, I assume.
Like you're saying you'd ignore the bad signs?
No, I didn't mean, I mean, because maybe you don't know how to cherish her. Because you just think, okay, well, it's just the average.
Yeah, I don't know. I think in a way, it is kind of like something where if you are actively looking for it.
Do you think love is something you can love actively looking for?
I think there's people who try to seek love at like for example, like I want to go find a girlfriend.
I never, even today, I don't believe love is something you can seek for it and find for it. Maybe I'm wrong.
I actually agree with you. I think that you can like open yourself up to opportunities.
That can be. I think that's a right mindset.
But I feel like it's more so something you kind of find kind of like later on.
Who knows?
Or like no, like you kind of like realize you found love after you've already found it like later on.
I think since we already talked about,
since
we already talked about this one, let's move on to the second topic.
The second, we're only on 2?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. We got a lot to cover.
Yeah. So the second topic is that let's skip the coding first. We will go back to coding later.
Okay.
So the next topic is